think we should start talking about relationship a little bit, and then we'll talk about your book. So
Okay.
what's going on like post-COVID? Where do you think relationships going? And some people just like jumping into a relationship because you know what happened, COVID, being lonely and all that. So it's like, oh, in case something happened, I want to be there, you know?
Well, I think we have to just talk just a little bit about what happened during COVID. So when COVID happened, relationships literally went crazy. They literally lost their minds because number one, they were quarantining together. They're now working from home. Maybe the kids are there because there was a lack of daycare. So what ended up happening is a lot of the distractions that usually couples have that can go on for years and years, now you're quarantining with that person all day long. And then you start to realize, I really don't like you, you know? And maybe I really don't like myself in some ways, and maybe I'm projecting that, but I really don't like who you are. Now I realize that we really don't communicate a lot. I don't like all the quirky things about you, and vice versa, that person's feeling about them. So I think that couples really were forced into making a choice. Either we are going to go to therapy because we've probably been needing it for the last 10 years, or we are going to separate. And some of my clients did do that. What's really funny is some people separated to like the shed that they had on the property. So usually it was the husband that is now in the shed, right? And which he's made I guess, into his man cave. And they're like, okay, we can't literally divorce right now because of financial reasons, but we definitely don't need to be together. This is a long time overdue. So I saw a lot of that. And then I saw a lot of couples that actually did go to therapy and really ended up getting it together, just finding themselves and being very self-aware. And they really reinvented their relationship. So now I think post-COVID, I think there's a lot of people that actually did get divorced. There's a lot of people that did break up. And there are people that actually enhanced and just rejuvenated their relationship. And then there's those people that were single during all of COVID that literally, once they were outside, they have lost their minds and went totally crazy, and they're dating anybody that they can see at this point. So I think you have those people too.
Yeah, Noam did good in COVID, right, Noam?
Or what?
I'm sorry.
You did
again?
good in your relationship with COVID?
Me with my wife?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we had ups and downs, I'd say, during COVID.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
I
So
did good with my kids. It was good. It was good for the relationship with my kids.
Hmm.
yeah.
I think I did fine. I mean, it was fine.
That means she's around.
You know Morse code?
Well, yeah. Yeah, Morse code. There you go. Actually, we have her right here. Juanita, please. So you, the last couple of years. Yeah.
What about you, Hatem? What's going on? What did you get into? What are your relationships over the pandemic?
My relationships are great during the pandemic. I found the right way. I became a relationship coach. I'm joking. But isn't that a great job? Because you can get, you know, right, Dr. Michelle?
Sometimes. I mean, you know what? It's my purpose. So, of course, overall, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some days that I am just like, I literally told you guys the same thing last week. Like, you still are doing the same thing that I told you last week. You know, sometimes people just don't listen, and you just have to accept that. So,
like my wife. Oh, Jesus.
But also people, I guess people, the good part is like people learn a little bit from COVID and be like, we need to make the right choice because I need to really like that person.
yes. Exactly. If you're with that person every day, you know, even if you travel, for the most part, you're with that person every day. you sleep with that person every night. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to like that person, you
Yeah.
know?
But I mean,
Yeah.
in different ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we can just throw some different relationship questions at you. I have like randomly, I have one is like, you know, when you at work, you know, and you like somebody, and with all the Me Too thing and all the how do you have a healthy relationship at work anymore? Like this is not, it's very touchy thing now. Like you can like someone. So if somebody comes to you and say, like, hey, I like this girl at work with me, what should I do? You know?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And I say that because most people, whether you're at work or not, do not have the tough conversations. They don't sit down and they don't talk about boundaries in the very beginning. So I would say that if you are going to get or considering to get into a work relationship, first you might want to check out and see what are the company guidelines to people that are working together, you know, what that entails, because maybe you work for a company that doesn't even allow that. So that would be the first thing. The
But what, yeah,
second
what if it's, you know, what if it's a regular place, they have rules, but you know, but also you're afraid of like, you know how it is these days, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I would say that you have to really sit down with that person in the very beginning and really establish some boundaries. And then also too, maybe the person that you are at work, and I do believe in being authentic at work, but at the same time, who we are as a couple outside of work is very different than how we connect and how we interact at work. So I think having that conversation as well is very important, because I mean, however long you're around that person, 8 hours, 12 hours, however long you work during the day, you have to connect differently in that capacity, because it is different. Like you're not going to be just, you know, coming up to each other and smacking each other on the butt, or, you know, getting a real passionate kiss, you know, in the break room. Like you're not going to do that. So it's going to be very different from,
But what if you're not in a relationship yet and you like someone and you want to approach them, but you're afraid that this could happen, you know, somebody could report you or something? And no, what's the guideline in your place, your establishment? You don't, you know, did you change since all this craziness, the Me Too and stuff?
Well, the guidelines are that the you know, managers or people in authority are not supposed to, under any circumstances, have relationships with people you know, under them. But you know, I was trying to find, I can't find it. I just saw there was a study that recently came out. It says something like 35% of all people are currently having relationships at work that are secret, or, you know, something ridiculous. It's so, I mean, do I think that by having that rule, I'm actually going to prevent a manager and an employee who are passionately want each other from finding each other?
I think you actually help on them because it's forbidden. Like, ooh.
I just don't think it's realistic. You know, I just don't think it's realistic. People are not going to prioritize some rule like that over what they want.
Yeah.
They'll immediately feel it's none of anybody else's fucking business if we want to see each other, you know, and they will see each other, and they think they won't get caught. I mean, look at CNN. CNN's been preaching this, you know, stuff for a year or years already. Cuomo got in trouble for it. Don Lemon is accused of a sexual thing. Now Jeff Zucker, it turns out, was sleeping with someone he worked with, you know, and there's probably, you know, 30 other cases that didn't come out. For every one that comes out, there's probably 100 other ones. So I just think, you know, part of the modern world is that we're treading into standards that are just not compatible with human nature, and we should be smarter about creating standards that people can actually live up to. And these standards are nuts.
You know that I got into my first and longest relationship within seconds of working at the Cellar.
But not with a superior. With a superior?
Not with a superior. No. With you know my entire life story with the
Everybody
comic.
does. Yeah.
with a comic. Yeah. Everybody knows my first boyfriend, my first everything. Within minutes of arriving at the cellar, I fell into a relationship that I was in for 10 years. And then that like changed the course of my life. Absolutely. Not with a superior, but that's just because I wasn't into my superiors. Otherwise I would have gone for a superior for sure.
I don't know. Then now you tell me. And then there was just some major company. Was it Disney or something where the guy had like a long-term relationship, totally consensual with someone who
Right.
and he was forced to resign? Like, why?
Right.
And people say, oh, well, anytime you have a relationship with a superior, or anytime a superior has a relationship with an inferior, it's by definition sexual harassment. But that's just not true.
Right.
Everybody knows that's not true. There is such a thing as sexual harassment, but that's not what most relationships are. Most relationships are sincere. I mean, it's the difference between a boss who says, you know, either you sleep with me or you're fired, or a boss who has a 15-year relationship with you, you know, that involves spending time together, holidays, vacations, you know, that's not harassment. Anyway, and I'll say one other thing, girls, you can tell me if I'm wrong, ladies, women, but years ago,
thank you for that, Noam.
years ago, women used to take certain jobs like working in behind a desk at a medical office or in a hospital, hoping to meet the doctor. This is not like every Jewish mother would tell their daughter, go get a job at the hospital, meet a nice doctor, right? This was not, I mean, let's just be real. It was not a one-way lecherous boss looking for the employee. This also quite often the employee is very happy to meet the professional boss, right? That's the real world.
Dr. Michelle, what do you
Karen?
think?
Anybody, guys?
You don't want to say it out loud? I mean, come on.
Who wants to
There's
Who
a
wants to
million
take this
Hollywood
one?
movies about this plot. Go ahead.
No, my millennial ass just sat there listening to a boomerfied way of explaining that.
Oh, come
But yeah,
on.
you're right. Listen. I know. It's not just a boss going around. Everybody wants everybody. Are you kidding me?
Yes,
Work
that's
is such a little weird pressure cooker niche environment. You're in your own little ecosystem. You have your own little slang and your things and everything. And you know, the Comedy Cellar specifically is so specific. The comedy world is so like, oh my God, of course. I didn't go there and hook up with people when I got there, I was like, well, this is just going to be a whole thing.
Let me before Dr. Hannah, because I sort of throw one other log on the fire because I think it's quite important and it's so obvious, but it can be forgotten, which is that for a certain older generation, we remember the time before there was internet dating. And before there was internet dating, your options for meeting somebody were really limited very, very much to your professional life. This was where it was either that or go out to a singles bar. And, you know, that was humiliating, right? And people did that. The singles bar scene was a big thing in those days, but that was kind of like the low rent way to do it. So it was, now that we have other options, maybe it's less intensely needed to be able to meet people in the workplace. And maybe that takes some of the pressure off, but we shouldn't, think that the people who did meet at the workplace or even took a particular job in the hopes of meeting somebody were like creepy or something, because what were their other options in those days? There was no internet. So anyway, go ahead, Dr. Hannah.
No, I actually agree with a lot of your points. I think it's with internet dating, since you brought that up, I think that is unrealistic to think that maybe there could be I don't know the statistic, but there are going to more than likely be someone that's on that app that you work with.
Yes.
And so then how do you really control that? And I don't even think you have to control that. I think it's that, we're going to be attracted to one another for whatever the reason is. I think where the problem comes in is when you have things like this that happen where one person gets now mad at the other person because they broke up. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm presenting some false accusations based on me being mad because of that. So I do think that I don't know, it's a real sticky situation, because then I do think there should be consequences when you are dating people in the workplace. Or maybe if you're going to date somebody in the workplace and you've consented to this relationship, I don't know if maybe they should sign something stating that now they're not going to come back and say, okay, now I want to sue this person for sexual harassment, or, or maybe this person violated me, when they know that it was a consensual relationship. Like everyone that's their friends at work know that it was a consensual relationship. So I think that, maybe something has to be put in place for that. But I think you're right, is that you can't really control that.
And I think it also depends on what is the workplace,
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure. Yeah, because I think it's different when you have like a startup company versus where you have this big corporation.
Yeah.
The rules are different as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
It was Intel, the head of it. No, this was 2018. There was a more recent, the head of Priceline resigned, the head of Intel resigned. Maybe it was Disney. I'll keep looking, but I mean, there's no good answer, right? That's just the thing. It's no good answer, but the mistake is, and I mean, I'm a boss. I understand I understand there's no good answer, and I wish there were. I really don't want my manager dating a waiter. My manager is mostly female, dating a waiter, and then the other servers look at the schedule and they think that he's getting favorites. I mean, it's a thicket, I understand all the problems. Nevertheless, I don't think these people who break these rules are bad people. I think let he who has not sinned cast the first stone. I mean, who has not done something they regretted because they were overcome by romantic or sexual urges? Every single person on planet Earth has, every normal person. And it's just the level of judgment that goes into other people judging other people.
And I think Dr. Michelle also
annoying. It makes me sick. Phonies, they're all phonies.
She touched on a good point. Is like people change after they break up. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily just with it's sexual harassment, but I can see your scenario with the schedule. Now that he broke up with her, he's getting the worst schedule.
People shouldn't sign something that they won't date. They should sign something if they date, they won't break up. And then there's no problems whatsoever. Everybody just gets together, stays together.
Yeah.
This is your problem, and it's not the restaurant's problem.
Or if they broke up, then
But I think that's why it's so important for people to be emotionally healthy, period, going into any relationship, so that you're mature enough to know that if you do break up, that these things happen. You break up, that's life. You don't go back to work and then you want to set all his, tires on a flat because you're emotional about the fact that you broke up. It's just not the place to do it. And I'm not saying that you should do it outside of work. I'm just